We live in one of the most inspiring mountain landscapes in the West. It's been attracting artists for the past 170 years. The History of Art in Crested Butte project set out to discover and archive the artists that made this place the art destination that it is today. The earliest artists in the area were brought here during the railroad surveys of the 1850s. Those surveys searched for the easiest passage through the southern Rocky Mountains over Cochetopa Pass. Cochetopa Pass, which in the Ute language means Gate of the Buffaloes, was the most gentle pass in the southern Rockies. That funneled artist explorers over the low pass into what would become the Gunnison Valley and on through the Black Canyon. Fortunately, we have this landmark, Hippie Hill, on the west end of Crested Butte, which creates a convenient vantage point to capture the changing town over the last 150 years. The many photographers that have worked in Crested Butte have taken images from this same point, providing us a comparative view of how Crested Butte has changed over time. By 1880, there were 3 photography galleries in Gunnison. They were attracted to the area following the mining booms and with the arrival of the railroad. They found work documenting mining claims, family portraits, and the beautiful landscapes that everyone loved in our area. After the mining days ended in 1952 and the railroad was pulled up from Crested Butte, the focus of photographers turned to recording the rapidly disappearing Old West. They were documenting old landmarks, falling down wooden architecture, and the remnants of a time past. Some of these still remain to this day, including the depot in town. The art steadily grew from 1967 to 2016, when the state designated Crested Butte as a creative arts district. Supporting an equivalent of over 250 full-time artists, the arts generate over $10 million a year in the valley. Our valley is spectacularly pretty. There's some of the best access to wild places anywhere. Like the Frontier West, our town continues to attract a diverse group of people. They're all drawn here to the edge of civilization where town meets wild places. They bring their entrepreneurial, independent, self-minded, creative spirits here where they're determined to live an authentic life in the Frontier West. In 1872, a year before the Hayden survey came to this valley, they were exploring what would become known as Yellowstone. Thomas Moran, the very influential American painter, was with them on that expedition. He would become so well known for his renderings, sketches, drawings, and paintings that were made on that expedition. He would go on to sell a painting to Congress for $10,000. It was for that reason, and his popularity at the time, that he passed on the offer from Hayden to accompany the expedition to be in this exact valley. He would go on to work from the photographs of William Henry Jackson, and he would make images of Teocalli and the Black Canyon from his photos. In 1873, the Hayden survey began to explore Colorado with the intent of making what would become the nation's best atlas made to that point. The survey started off in Denver, divided up into many different parties, and headed west over the Rocky Mountains. In 1873, this area was extremely wild. It was still unexplored. It hadn't been filled in on maps yet. There were Ute Indians just west of us, no more than 2 or 3 miles. And there would have been several placer miners with their gold pans trying to find what they could of the riches that were in each and every one of these valleys that lead to Crested Butte. To get to this spot, they headed up through Twin Lakes, over Lake Pass, into Taylor Park, up Spring Creek, through Cement Creek, and into Brush Creek Valley here. This is the spot where William Henry Jackson took several photographs. The wet collodion plate process photographs, and also the fad of the time, which was 3D photos or stereo view photography. His photos then were taken to the East Coast, where they were translated into woodblock etchings and engravings. That same year, in 1874, the engraving and the photograph was given to Thomas Moran, and he reinterpreted and translated the image into the image that was included into Picturesque America, which was a widely distributed publication in 1874. Hayden, Holmes, and Jackson spent much time together out in the wilderness here, leading to a lifelong friendship. They each would go on to become extremely successful in their own careers. William Henry Holmes would become the first director of the National Gallery of Art at the Smithsonian. William Henry Jackson would go on to photograph Colorado and the West for many more years and have a studio in Denver. The Hayden Survey of 1873 created many of the first widely distributed images of the Colorado Rockies. These images included Mount of the Holy Cross, Teocalli, Twin Lakes, and many others that were included in widely distributed publications throughout the East Coast. These first images made of the Colorado Rockies were some of the images that romanticized what the frontier West was and brought many people west on wagon trains with dreams of riches and wealth, getting to play in places just like this.